I was raised by a single mom. My father left when I was pretty young. And so my mother, she remarried, but um, for a big chunk of my childhood, my sister and I were raised just by my mom, and she was going to school and working at the same time, and trying to raise two kids, and it wasn't easy. I remember times when the student loans hadn't come in quick enough, and so she was having to piece together and scrimp and save just to make sure that we had food on the table. There were a few stretches where she had to get food stamps, even though she was very proud to make sure that we had enough enough to eat at home. And you know, it's because of that experience that when I hear that women are being treated unfairly on the workplace, where there's injustice and we are not seeing the basic principle of equal pay for equal work being observed, that I get mad and I get frustrated. And the truth is that although we've made enormous strides over the last 20, 30 years, what remains the case is that women typically make a little over 75 cents on every dollar that's earned by men. Here in New Mexico, they typically make 71 cents for every dollar that's earned by men. And unfortunately, what we have not seen is a federal government over the last 8 years that is seriously committed to making sure that we are closing that gap. The best example is the recent Supreme Court case involving a woman named Lilly Ledbetter. And Lilly Ledbetter, who I had the pleasure of meeting, is a wonderful woman. She had been working at a company. She discovered fairly recently that for years she had been getting paid substantially less than her male counterparts for doing the exact same job. And we have laws on the books that say you can't do that. So she went to court and sued for back pay and damages. And the Supreme Court, this Supreme Court, appointed the majority appointed by George Bush and his father and others, they decided, well, you've got to file for discrimination right away. And since years had passed, you no longer can file suit because this discrimination started a long time ago. Of course, they didn't point out that she just found out about it. So there was no way for her to know that she was being discriminated against. And so this case was dismissed, despite the clear intent of Congress when it passed laws saying that you can't discriminate on the job on the basis of gender. So a number of us, myself, Tom Harkin, we introduced legislation that would reverse the Supreme Court ruling and say that you can always sue for discrimination if you did not know that you were being discriminated against. Seems like common sense to me. My opponent, John McCain, opposed it. And it offers, I think, now his argument was the reason that women are seeing only 75 cents on the dollar, in the case of African American women or Latino women, even less, is not that they're being discriminated against, but they have less education and training. Well, that's not the case. That certainly wasn't the case with Lilly Ledbetter. And so it gives you a sense of a fundamentally different worldview about how government has to, who government has to fight for. It's my belief that government has to fight for people like Michelle and her daughter, who are out there working hard, doing what they're supposed to be doing, to make sure that the playing field is level, to make sure that they're treated fairly, to make sure that not only are you getting paid equally to men, but also that because women, whether we like it or not, the fact is, are still bearing more of a burden in terms of child rearing, that we have family-friendly policies in the workplace, and that government is partnering with business to try to create the kinds of work-family balance that I know many of you have struggled with and that my own mother had to struggle with. That means that we're going to be fighting for not only equal pay for equal work, but we're also going to be fighting for 7 days of paid sick leave so that if somebody gets sick, they can actually go or a family member is sick, that they can actually take care of them. It means that we're going to be expanding Family Medical Leave Act because right now it was a great idea, but the truth is not enough people are able to take advantage of it. And not only if you have a ailing child, but if you have an ailing parent, which a lot of people do now, that you have some flexibility in terms of taking care of them. That we fight for greater child care credits so that single moms who are supporting dependents, that they have more resources at home, that we are fighting for a minimum wage, that we're fighting for a earned income tax credit that makes sure that if you work full-time in this country, that you're not below the poverty line, that we're fighting for just basic fairness so that if people who are out there working every single day, trying to look after their families or doing the right thing, that they're going to be rewarded and that they can end up passing on a better life for their children. That's the essence of the American dream. And that's been my story. When I think about my life, it starts not just with my mom, but also my grandmother, who, grew up in the Great Depression, married my grandfather. He went off to fight in World War II. When he came back, he got a GI Bill and was able to go to college. My grandmother, who had worked on a bomber assembly line while raising my mother, who was an infant, she didn't get those same benefits. And so she never went to college, started work as a secretary. And because she was smarter than everybody else, including me, she ended up rising to become one of the first vice presidents of a bank where we lived. Except here's the thing that happened. She ended up hitting a glass ceiling, and after our time, once she got to a certain point, she ended up training men who had less experience and were less able than her, and oftentimes they ended up rising above her. And she never complained. She was part of that generation that just said, well, this is the way things are. But I often think about her, just like I think about my mom. And I say to myself that one of the things I'm absolutely committed to doing is making sure that my daughters, who are just like Vivi here, that they have the exact same opportunities that any boy would have out there. I don't ever want them to confront a situation where they are disadvantaged because of their gender. The thought of it would make my blood boil. And, all of us have a role to play in making sure that we've got an even playing field, but the government has to be on the side of what's right. That's what we're fighting for. That's one of the things that I fought for in the state legislature when I passed a law to help expand the ability for women to prevent discrimination to 330,000 more women when I was in the state of Illinois. That's what the Lilly Ledbetter case is about. That's part of what this campaign is about. And so I'm hoping that as we share our stories here today, one of the things that we are reminded of is what's at stake. Can we make this economy more fair so that our children and our grandchildren, our daughters and our granddaughters are going to have the kind of American dream that we all hope they will have.